Good morning, everyone. So, usually we say welcome home, but now we're on the Zoom and it's your home as well. Our subject today related to a biblical area, biblical site, known under the name of Samaria. First of all, we're going to start wandering around Tel Balata, which is the biblical Shechem. Then, from there, we're going to move to Jacob's well. And after Jacob's well, visiting Jacob's well, we're going to move to Mount Gerizim, which is the holy mountain for the Samaritans. And there we're going to deal with who are the Samaritans and from where the name came and why they were called Samaritans. Then from there, we're going to move to the capital of the Samaritans, which is Samaria, biblical Samaria. The one that was mentioned within the book of Kings several times, the one that was related to King Omri and to King Ahab and the Ivory Palace, as well the prophecy of Amos related to the destruction that will happen around the northern kingdom of Israel, and how the 10 tribes were taken to exile. Then we're going to move back to, or we're going to move into periods to the Herodian period. We're going to deal with Sebastia. We're going to deal with the Basilica, where this famous birthday happened, the birthday of Herod Antipas, and how Herodia danced, Salome, danced for Herod Antipas, daughter of Herodia, and how John was beheaded, and how the head, according to the Palestinian tradition, ended at that area. So this will be our subject today. We're going to deal with the area of Samaria. First of all, if we're talking about the biblical Shechem, we're looking at the area of Tel Balata. Shechem considered to be a Canaanite city-state. What Shechem means? According to Aramaic Hebrew language, Shechem means the shoulder, the area of the shoulder, Katif. And according to cuneiform language, Shechem, or Tel Balata of today, as we see in front of us in the picture, was inhabited during the early Bronze Age, late Chalcolithic, early Bronze Age. We're talking about 3,500 years, 3,500 BC. So maybe about 5,500 years ago. Simply, the first mentioning of Shechem through antiquity, we find at Ogarit letters. The Ogarit letters, which is a Canaanite letters, speaks about the city-state of Shechem. But the Bible gives us another narrative that goes back to the mid-Bronze Age. If we go back to Genesis chapter 12, we see clearly how Abraham, our great-grandfather, when he came wandering through the land of Canaan, simply the first stop was for him Shechem, around the Og of Moreh. There he met Hamor, the king. And after that, he left that area. Then the name Shechem in the Bible appears within the book of Genesis, again, chapter 34. And this is what we shall deal with when we go directly to Jacob's well. Shechem stayed as a Canaanite city-state. The book of Judges speaks about a temple for Baal over there, and this is what we see in front of us. This is the remains of Baal's temple at Tel Balata. We can see the retaining walls of the city-state, and at the top of it, the platform, and at the top of the platform, we can see the remains of Baal temple that was mentioned, book of Judges. As well, it was mentioned, book of Joshua spoke about the temple of Baal over there. The tribe of Ephraim was given that area, but the Canaanite kept holding the city-state. And this we know from the book of Judges, chapter 9 as well. Simply, the city-state continued up till 732 BC. What happened at 732 BC? The Assyrian invasion started with Tiglath-Pileser III. Part of the city-state was totally demolished, and the exile of the 10 tribes started at that point. Then comes 722, his own son, the Assyrian king, according to book of Isaiah, and from antiquities, we know his name under the name of Sargon or Sargon. He's the one who have finished, or he's the one who have continued the job of his own father, and he wiped the area of Shechem, taking the tribes, the remains of the tribes to exile, as we shall speak about when we go to Mount Gerizim, meeting the Samaritans, replacing them with Assyrian tribes over here in the Holy Land. Simply, the city-state was totally wiped. The area was abandoned up till the Hellenistic period. During the Hellenistic period, a new city was established. And we can see the remains. Here we can see up at the top of the picture some buildings that is attached to the city. The city is not so far, that was established by the Greeks. It's not so far from the Tel or the Canaanite city-state. It's the only city that got no name up till today. We call it Neapolis, Nablus, the new city. So the Greeks did not give it a name, the new city. Simply, Neapolis flourished during the Roman period, became Flavia Neapolis. The Tel, or the biblical area, or the Canaanite city, was totally abandoned. The new city flourished during Roman period. During the 2nd century AD, there was a bishop for Nablus, and he's a historian, Saint Manarious of Neapolis. He was the bishop over there during the time of Optimus Severus, late 2nd century, beginning of the 3rd century. And he wrote about the Christian community that was at Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Alia Capitolina, and Neapolis as well. The city during the Byzantine period took an importance, especially Jacob's Well, as we shall speak about soon, up till the early Islamic period, early Muslim period. Neapolis slept, became just a small village. Another village was erected nearby the ancient Tel, which is the village of Balata of today. We're talking about 750, the ending of the Umayyad period and the beginning of the Abbasi period. This continued up till the Crusader period. The Crusades took a good care of Neapolis, but the area of Tel Balata was again abandoned up till the late Ottoman period, when excavation started. 1887, excavation started around that area, and they found what we see in front of us. So this is a brief history about Tel Balata, or Shechem, the biblical site that is attached to Abraham and Jacob as well. Now we're going to move to Jacob's Well. Jacob's Well. When we talk about Jacob's Well, this what we see in front of us, the Crusader construction that was built around the well, and this is the opening of the well, and it's a very deep well, about 44 meters long. And this is what was mentioned within the Holy Gospel of John chapter 4, when Jesus met the Samaritan woman. The well is deep and you got no pocket. Now, what is the story of that area? According to Genesis chapter 34, Jacob Israel, he wanted to settle around that area. So he bought a piece of land over there. But he should dig a well. Why? Because according to the Canaanite culture, those days, if you want to settle in an area, you have to dig, finding your own water. If the water comes up to you, it means that God gave you the land. So you can stay. You have secured your own water, you can stay. And this is what happened. Water came out for him. So he started to settle around that well. But he didn't know that he's stranger in the land. So what happened, that his own daughter, Dinah, she met Hamor. Hamor was the son of the king, according to book of Genesis chapter 34. And she had kind of a relationship with him. Jacob was so wise. He did not want to spoil the relationship between him and the Canaanites. So he had kind of an agreement with them that they will enter through the covenant. And they've had their own circumcision. But who did not like that? His own two sons, Levi and Reuben. They didn't like that. So they've slayed the males at the city state. We might ask ourselves a question. How they will do that? How two persons can slay all the males? Well, when we talk about mid Iron Age up till mid Bronze Age up till late Iron Age, actually, we're talking about a city-state that is about 350 persons to 400 persons. How many males will be? About 50. And they were all in pain because of the circumcision. So it was so easy for them to be slayed. And this is what happened. But here Jacob became so angry of what happened, and he left the whole area. He wasn't angry from his own daughter. He was angry from his two sons because they broken his own covenant with the Canaanites. So he have left. The field and the well was controlled by the Canaanites. Later on, by the kingdom of Israel and by the Samaritans, by the Canaanites, and became known under the name of Bir al-Ghadban in Arabic. Bir al-Ghadban means the well of the angry person, because he left angry on his two sons. This was well kept and preserved up till the invasion of Joshua. The tribe of Ephraim took the place, settled around the well, up till they were removed by the Assyrian king Tiglath-Pileser and Sargon, his own son, 732 up till 722. Then the Assyrian tribes who mingled with the remains of Ephraim and Manasseh, the two tribes that they were there, well kept and preserved the place. Now we come to the Second Temple period, when Zerubbabel returned to the land with Shishbazzar 538 after the surrender of Cyrus the Great. Here, the tribe of Judah had kind of a separation with the Samaritans. So the Samaritans that they've considered themselves, as we shall see when we visit Mt Gerizim, the true Israelites, they've stayed well kept preserving the place. And Shechem was on the alternative way, going from Jerusalem back to Galilee. There was no connection between the Samaritans and the tribe of Judah. And here comes the Lord Jesus Christ, who is the first one who spoke highly about the Samaritans, the parable of the Good Samaritan. And he's the one who went to Samaria. At the beginning, he was refused, as we know from the Holy Gospel of Luke. The Holy Gospel of Luke spoke about how the Samaritan villages have refused Jesus. Even the disciples asked from him to burn them like Elijah. But Jesus said, Son of Man came to recover what had been spoiled. Here around this area was the famous meeting between the Samaritan women and Jesus. And this was at noon. Usually, according to the culture that goes back to the Canaanites and continued during the Israelite period and continued up till just 100 years ago, women comes to the well to meet, to socialize. Even marriages were around the well, prepared, biblical marriages as well. Simply, they used to come either early in the morning or in the afternoon, but not in the middle of the day. And this lady came at the middle of the day because she did not want to meet anyone until she met the Lord Jesus Christ. And here he started asking for a water to drink. She was so surprised. How come? You're a Jew asking from me a water. And at the beginning, she did not want to offer the water. She told him, the well is deep and you've got no pocket. And it's really deep, about 44 meters long. So simply, what happened that the conversation started, and Jesus asked that woman about her life. She did not lie. She have told him the truth. And after this meeting, her life was totally changed. We know her from the Palestinian tradition that goes back to the 1st century under the name of Saint Photoni. Even there is a document, an apocryphal document, known under the name the Acts of St. Paul, that goes back to the 2nd century AD, mentions her name and how she became the companion of St. Paul on his journeys, Takla and Photoni. Photoni means the Illuminatus lady, the lady that her mind was lighted by the Lord Jesus Christ. Saint Photoni and her family kept and preserved the place. Book of Acts speaks about Saint Philip coming to Samaria, to Shechem, to Jacob's well. And he met Simon the Magus over there as well. Simply, he started baptizing the Samaritans, and they start converting into Christianity, helped by Saint Photoni, until the two disciples, Saint Peter and Saint John came, and the Holy Spirit was upon the Samaritans, and they've converted. Her house nearby, we don't know where exactly today, but according to the tradition, her house was nearby the well, became the Domus Ecclesias, and the early church kept and preserved the site. The number of Christians around the Jacob's well increased, especially after the destruction of the temple, because a lot of Christians went to Bella, Jordan, and some of them came to Samaria, and some of them came to Galilee, went up to Galilee after the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. Samaria did not participate within the Great Revolt. Simply, during the Byzantine period, a big church was erected around the site by Evdokia. We're talking here 424, we're talking about 442 AD, when Evdokia started building the church. This church was destroyed by the Samaritans themselves during the Great Samaritan revolt against Justinianus, the emperor. And it was recovered again by Justinianus 535 till it was destroyed and demolished by the Parthians 614. A very small church was erected around the world that goes back to the early Muslim period. We can see parts of it here below where I'm pointing. Up till the Crusader period, the Crusades, they built this chapel around the well. So the chapel was built around the well. Simply, it was abandoned after that, 1187. No one was there up till the early Mamluk period, when the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate managed to take the property up till today. Here we can see a general picture for the well, the retaining walls, and the Crusader chapel. We can see the Arch of the Crusades at the top of the retaining walls over here. That goes back to the early Muslim period. This is Father Justinianus. Father Justinianus, he is the custody today of the church, and he is the one who built the new huge basilica around the well. Oh, sorry. We're going to come back to this area. So here we can see Father Justinianus. Behind him, there is the holy, here in this container from gold, we have the remains of, or the relics of Saint Photonie. And in the church, there is a jar that they claim it's the jar that was carried by the Samaritan lady. So this is the new basilica. The church was totally built by Father Justinianus, and he's the one who wrote all the icons that you see around you by himself. Since 1981, he was building the church, this church. And maybe if you've got any questions about the church, later we're going to deal with. Now, we're going to move from Jacob's Well and Father Justinianus to Mt Gerizim. Mt Gerizim, this is the pictures of Mt Gerizim, but first we're going to deal with the Samaritans. Here we have the Samaritans. Now, who are these Samaritans? We've got two theories related to the Samaritans. We've got the biblical theory, and we've got their own story, the Samaritan story. I will give both narratives. According to the Bible, the book of Kings, after the death of Solomon, simply the kingdom was divided between Rahbaam and Yeroboam. Rahbaam took the 10 tribes, forming the northern kingdom that was from Dan to Bethel, the borders of the northern kingdom. And the southern kingdom, the kingdom of Judea, was from Bethel to Beersheba. Sometimes they were together, sometimes they fought against each other. Sometimes they were alliance, cousins, sometimes no. But as far as we know from the Bible, since the dividing of the kingdom, the 10 tribes did not return back to God, not like the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Judah used to worship idols sometimes and return back to God, but the 10 tribes did not. And this what was Prophet Amos shouting about. If we read the prophecy of Amos chapter 7, he speaks about how Samaria will be destroyed. Now, the name, what the name means. The name means Shomeri. Samaritan, Shomeri, means the guard. And the area was bought by Omri after the dividing of the kingdom from a man called Shomeri, Shimroni, the guard, which became his own capital. The Bible mentions Book of Kings chapter 14, Book of Kings, the 2nd chapter 14, that Assyrian tribes came into the land, the kingdom of Israel, and they've learned how to worship the God of the land, because at the beginning beasts came to eat them, until some priests came to teach them how to worship the God of the land, and they've got mingled with what had been remained, and they became the Samaritans. But since the dividing of the kingdom, the Bible gave the name Samaritan or Sumeria to the northern kingdom. So this is according to the biblical narrative. Now we have the other story, which is the Samaritan story. The Samaritans, they believe with the 5 books of Moses only. and they have their own Torah. They have their own Pentateuch, the 5 books, and there is about 7,000 differences between the Hebrew Pentateuch and the Samaritan Pentateuch. They claim that it's the oldest, written by Ezra, the son of Aaron, from the mouth of Prophet Moses. And they claim that they have not left the land at all since they came with Joshua. Even after the invasion, they've stayed. And they claim that they are the remains of Manasseh, Ephraim, and the Levites who were there. Because if we go back to the book of Judges and the book of Joshua as well, this area was given to the Levites. There were Levites living over there. So they believe that they are the successors of Manasseh, Ephraim, and the Levites. Manasseh and Ephraim, they were the 2 tribes replacing Gad and Reuben, who stayed at Transjordan. And Manasseh and Ephraim, they were the successors of Joseph. They inherit Joseph heritage and the Levites. So they believe that they are the Ephraim, Manasseh, and Levites tribes living in the land, and they have not left the land at all. Today, their number is about 700 people. What happened to them? A lot of massacres happened, especially during the Byzantine period related to the Samaritans. So especially during the time of Justinian, after they revolted against him. So their number declined. Many of them converted into Christianity as well. Many of them converted into Islam as well, according to their own story. When the British Mandate started in 1918, their number was only 134 persons, no more, no less. And they were about to vanish. There was a big famine in the land during the First World War. And they were badly affected. So immediately, a British camp was established nearby Mount Gerizim, and they took a good care of them. And because of the British Mandate, today we have Samaritans. So they were about to vanish. Today, about 350 persons lives around the area of Mount Gerizim, and about 350 persons lives around the area of Holon in Israel. So this is all about the Samaritans. Still, they give the sacrifice. Still, they celebrate the major Israelite feasts that was mentioned within the 5 books of Moses: Tabernacle, Pentecost, and Passover. And they give the sacrifice up till today, even though there is no temple. So this is about the Samaritans. Now, let's go to, we can see a picture for them praying over here. Let's go to Mount Gerizim. Here we are, friends, at the top of Mount Gerizim. According to the Samaritans, Mount Gerizim considered to be the holy mountain. And according to them, the temple that Solomon built at Jerusalem should be at Mount Gerizim. Jerusalem was not mentioned within the Pentateuch, but Mount Gerizim was mentioned 7 times as the mountain of blessing. Because when Joshua entered into the land of Canaan, he associated 6 tribes at Mount Gerizim and 6 tribes at Mount Ebal. The 6 tribes at Mount Gerizim, they start reading the blessings, and the 6 tribes at Mount Ebal, they start reading the cursings. So Mount Gerizim became the Mount of Blessing according to the Samaritan theory. And according to their own theory, this is the same Bethel where Jacob saw the ladder coming from heavens and he saw the angels coming up and down, which we believe in our tradition, it's a prefiguration. It's a prefiguration for Virgin Mary. She's the true leader, and the angels coming up and down on her after she bare the Lord Jesus Christ. So they believe it's Bethel. Jacob's dream happened there. Not only that, you might be surprised. We can see a Hellenistic building over here, but further to this site where I'm pointing, you might be surprised if you know that they believe this is Mount Moriah for them. For the Samaritans, this is also Mount Moriah. This is where the slaying of Isaac happened, when his father bound him and he tried to slay him, and the angel of God have stopped him. So they believe it's over here in this area. So they believe that this is Mount Moriah for them. Now, the area was, well, Mount Gerizim was inhabited by the Samaritans, but there was no temple for them up till the Hellenistic period. Alexander the Great took good care of the Samaritans, and he allowed them to build a temple at the top of the mountain. Even during the Herodian period, Herod had no problem with the Samaritans at all. So simply, the temple was well kept and preserved up till the Byzantine period. Justinian comes and wipes the place totally. And at the top of the place, he builds a church for Virgin Mary instead of the temple. And over here we can see the sketch of the monastery and the church that was built by Justinian, an octagonal church, to commemorate Jacob's dream and the relation between Jacob's dream and Virgin Mary that I have explained to you about. Because in our Christian tradition, we believe that she is the true leader coming from heavens. This church remained up till 614, then it was totally demolished and destroyed. The area was totally abandoned. Nothing was at the top of it. Even the Samaritans did not have, they did not have any temple after that, or nothing, or even a mosque during the early Muslim period. Crusader period, there was kind of a fortress at the southern part of the church where I'm pointing. And during the Mamluk period, there was kind of a fortifications around the area. So this is where the Mamluk fortifications stands, and the Ottoman fortifications as well. After the Ottomans left the land, the area was totally abandoned. Today, it's part of the Israeli National Park authorities. So this is about Mount Gerizim, or the Holy Mountain for the Samaritans, Bethel for them, as well, Mount Moriah. Now, we're leaving the place, we're driving towards Sebastia, the hell of the Samaritans, where was Omri's capital. Yep. Here we are. What do we see around here? This is the area of the hell of the Samaritans. This is where Samaria located. This is where the story of Omri, Ahab, the Ivory Palace, where he died on his chariot and the dogs came leaking his own blood, as well the palace where his wife Jezebel was thrown down from. This is the area of the Samaritan hill. Back to the biblical story. Book of Kings speaks about that area. King Omri buys the hill from a man called Shimroni, the guard, and it became the hill of the Samaritans. Then he builds the palace, the Ivory Palace, that the Bible spoke about Book of Kings and the Book of Amos. Opposite us on this hill, a battle happened between the Amorites and the Canaanites from the side, and from the other side, the Israelites, King Ahab, as well Yehoshaphat, king of Judea. And at Wadi Tirza, this area, Wadi Tirza, which is a biblical wadi, wadi means a dry bed river, Yehoshaphat ran away and he left Ahab alone. Ahab lost the battle and he was badly wounded. So the news came to his wife. When she was preparing herself for the new masters, the slaves threw her down from the window and the dogs came leaking her own blood. Ahab came from the valley over here all this way to the Ivory Palace, where his chariot was cleaned from blood after his death. And then the dogs came leaking his own blood. And this is where the prophecy of Elijah was fulfilled. When Ahab killed Naboth at Jezreel Valley, Elijah came to him telling him, the same dogs who have leaked the blood of Naboth will come and leak your own blood. And this is exactly what happened around that area. The prophecy of Amos speaks about the destruction that will happen. And this is exactly what happened. When the Assyrians came, they destroyed the Ivory Palace. During the excavations that happened there, early 20th century, during the British Mandate, and as well during the Israeli occupation for that area, Nablus, Samaria, Sebastia or Sebastus, simply they found 1,000 pieces from ivory at this place, proving what was mentioned in the Bible Book of Kings about the Ivory Palace. The area was nearly abandoned up till the Hellenistic period. During the Hellenistic period, the area of Sebastia was re-inhabited again by the Samaritans. This is a this is a Roman theater we shall speak about, but just look around here at the top of the theater. Here, exactly this area where I'm pointing. This is the only Hellenistic tower that we've got in the Holy Land. This one, adjacent to the Roman theater. This one. And it goes back to the Ptolemies, to the Ptolemy period. We can see it over here. And when we walk around this ramp, the ramp itself goes back to the Ivory Palace, leading up to the Ivory Palace. We pass nearby the Hellenistic tower. Then comes Herod the Great. Then comes Herod the Great. Herod the Great comes over here. Herod the Great that comes over here. He expanded the place. 1 minute. He expanded the place. And Herod Antipas, and he adds, a temple. And he adds a temple for Augustus Caesar. These are the steps that leading up to Augustus Caesar temple. And these are the basics of the columns that leads over there. We can see it, and the retaining walls as well of the temple opposite us. That was related to the temple of Augustus Caesar. And he's the one who have changed the name of the place from Sumeria, or from the hill of Sumeria, to Sebastus, which is the Greek name of Augustus. The area was expanded by Herod Antipas, adding a basilica. adding a basilica. This is the basilica that was added by Herod Antipas. And on this corner, he was sitting when Salome danced to him. And he promised that he shall give her whatever she asked for. What she have asked for, the head of John the Baptist, because John the Baptist was bothering her own mother. And here comes the relationship between Elijah and John. John came with the spirit of Elijah, as we know from the Holy Gospel of Matthew chapter 11. Elijah stood in front of Jezebel and Ahab. John the Baptist stood in front of Herod Antipas and Herodias. So he was beheaded at Macawer, but the head came to this area. And we have a Byzantine church known under the name the Church of St. John the Baptist. Simply, the area developed during the Byzantine period, during the Roman period. Here comes Septimus Severus, the emperor, 204, expanding the city of Sebastia, adding a Cardo Maximus and a Cardo Minor, making Sebastia a Roman city, and adding this theater. This is the theater that goes back to Septimus Severus, adjacent to the Greek tower, below the Ivory Palace ramp, where I'm pointing. During the Byzantine period, a church was erected. Around the area of Sebastia. This is the basilica. A church was erected around Jacob's well, as well around the area where John the Baptist head was kept. This is part of the retaining walls that goes back to the Byzantine basilica that was destroyed 614, recovered 628 by Modestus, monk of Jerusalem, as we call him. Again, it was destroyed again 749, related to the great earthquake that happened in Palestine. Never recovered again until the Crusader period. The Crusades had their own church. We can see some of the Crusader remains here in this area. This arch and this window goes back to the Crusader period, as well some buildings where I'm pointing goes back to the Crusader period. And there was kind of a small fortress around that area. The Crusades 1187 left the place, and it was used by Al-Hikari, the friend of Salah ad-Din, for a short while as an ammunition post. Then it was used by the Mamluks later on. And the Mamluks added the mosque with the minaret over here. And this is the Mamluk Mosque, and it was known under the name of Nabi Yahya, which means John the Baptist, according to the Quran, the holy book of the Muslims. His name is Nabi Yahya. So it became the cenotaph of Nabi Yahya. Used up till the Ottoman period. Late Ottoman period, it was abandoned. Today, it's under the Palestinian Ministry of Antiquities. So what do we see over here exactly is the retaining walls of the Byzantine church and, back to the retaining walls of the Byzantine church, as well the Crusader church, part of the Crusader church with the Mamluk Mosque. Any questions? So we've had a little journey between Neapolis, Shechem. We went to Jacob's well. From Jacob's well, we went up to Mt Gerizim. We've met the Samaritans. From there, we went all the way to Sebastia, the capital of the Samaritans, the Ivory Palace, King Omri, King Ahab, the destruction that happened, that Prophet Amos spoke about. Then we went to the Greek tower, Hellenistic period, Then to the Herodian period, Herod Antipas, son of Herod the Great, how John was beheaded because of the promise that Antipas gave. Then we've continued through the Byzantine period, Crusades, Mamluks, and Ottomans. Now, if you've got any questions, well, I have finished my quick tour through Shechem area, Samaria.